Hi, I'm John Roberts, professional photographer turned specialty photographic retail expert from beautiful British Columbia in the Lower Mainland area, aka Vancouver area. And I want to first acknowledge that I'm situated on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Coast Salish people and the Katzie First Nations. And I myself am from the Kitsum-Kalem Band, which is part of the Tsimshian First Nations. As you can see, we're filming indoors today, which means good old Pacific Northwest weather, which is rain. Lots and lots of rain. If you can hear the rain on the roof or the window over my mic, I apologize in advance. And today, I'm here to talk to you about the brand new Lomography ATOLL ultra-wide 17mm 2.8 art lens in Leica M mount. Boy, that's a mouthful. I received this in the mail just this past week. And for those of you that might prefer to read what I'm about to say, M from Emulsive has asked me to post an article on emulsive.org, so that will be in the near future, and I will add the link to the description below. So today we're going to do a tilde format, and I'm going to give you the pros and cons and my conclusion first, and then for those of you that want to stick around for the ultimate geeking out in its full glory, then afterwards you're welcome to do so. But if you just want the nitty-gritty, here we go. Pros. Build construction. I love the build construction of this lens. It feels super solid. The focus is super smooth, as is the aperture ring is nice and constant. Optical quality. From the limited time I've had this lens, I'm very pleased with the image quality and the color rendition. Like usual, anything when you buy anything Lomography, it comes in great, super colorful packaging. This one is no different. Cons. Lens hood. It is not removable, which will make it difficult for use of filters. That's going to go on in better description later on in further detail, so hang around for that. Aperture is not clicked. Some will love it. I personally do not. It's not make or break for me. I'll learn to live with it. Optical finder. This feels cheap. It's the one thing that I hope Lomography will update in the future for this. Depending on the camera that you're using this with as well, the rangefinder patch on my CL here is blocked. Other cameras will as well, but Leica M's, I'm having no problems so far. There you have the pros and cons. To conclude this part, I'm really enjoying this lens, the build quality, the optical quality. Everything seems great so far. Lomography really put a lot of thought into the layout and form and function. And while there are a few nitpicky items that will, if I were to go back in time, would I still back this Kickstarter? Absolutely. I'd put my money down again, no problem. So for those of you that were just here to hear that part, you're free to go. Oh, still, yeah. Okay, there we go. Now, for the rambling geek out part. We're going to play by the standard rules for me. Every time you hear character, drink. Thank you, Chris McDonald and Terrence Lamb, for coming up with those rules when I was on the Classic Camera Revival not too long ago. Watch out for that episode as well. It was pretty good. Back earlier this year, 2021, Lomography, like most of their other fun art lenses, they announced this on Kickstarter. This is an ultra-wide lens for Leica M mount. You can get it with adapters for Canon RF, Nikon Z, Sony FE, etc. But being a wide-angle fan and a Leica fan, I backed this Kickstarter. And very early on, I got the 24-hour early bird special for their Kickstarter. Since they've had such success with all their previous Kickstarters, I had no problem backing this one. This lens retails for $550 US, $699 for Canadians. Once all the Kickstarters backers get theirs, this will be available in the Lomography store and retailers. Right now it's pre-order. To give a bit of a bigger picture, I already own some super wides. The Voigtlander Ultra Heliar 12mm LTM, Leica thread mount. Fun lens. Not a great lens, lots of character, drink. But it's not the best lens out there, but it's a really fun lens to use and nowhere near any distortion free. Also in my arsenal, there's the Voigtlander 21 and the 25 f4, the color scope R and the snapshot scope R. I love that 25 snapshot scope R. It's a great lens. So why did I need the Lomography ATOLL 17mm 2.8 art lens, you ask? Well, anyone who has ever shot with a ultra wide angle lens can tell you the difference between 12 millimeters and 21 millimeters is absolutely massive. And anything below 24, really every millimeter can make a marketable difference in your end result. So I was looking for something to fill the void between the 12 millimeter and 21, and this fits the bill quite nicely and doesn't break the bank like the Zeiss ZM18 or a Leica 18 would. So I gambled on the fact that this was going to be a fairly decent lens and put my money down and waited. And just like they said in the Kickstarter campaign that it would be shipping early fall, mid-late September I got my DHL tracking number, which never actually worked. It kept telling it was an incomplete tracking number. Anyway, October 14th, I had this lens in hand and delivered by Canada Post for some reason. Oh, and $45 was owed for duties. But anyway, I opened the shipping box, found quite a pretty box like I showed you. Like everything you get from Lomography, it's top-rate packaging. We're going to pause you for a minute and actually go into the packaging. Like I said, it's quite colorful. It's got a lovely picture on the top from one of the pre-released images. I called it aesthetically pleasing. Okay. It's got the little tie down here. Everything else, you got the little book like you normally would, and then the usual warranty paperwork, etc., all inside. The lens itself is very nice. My copy is serial number 111. Bunch of zeros in front of that, but the focus, like I mentioned, is nice and smooth, as is the aperture. Declicked or clickless, I guess, because it was never clicked in the first place. I know I'm going to be a minority on this, that I would really wish that it had clicks, but what do you do, right? The lens cap, nice and metal. It's got the felt lining inside, so it fits nicely over the lens hood. Yeah, the rear lens cap. The rear lens cap, mine that arrived with it appears to be slightly defective. It fits just fine on this lens, but on other Leica M lenses of mine, it doesn't really fit. Not really a big deal. I have spare caps. Also, when I was converting it to my Canon RF, the TT Artisans adapter that I use, the lens never really locked in place on that. It locks fine on my bodies, but on that particular adapter, it just never really locked. I don't know whether that's a tolerance issue with the adapter or with the lens. That said, the adapter locks beautifully on every other single one of my lenses. So I'm guessing it's the lens, but it locks fine on the body, so I'm not gonna, this is where I'm gonna be using it most of all. As I mentioned early on, the hood, as you can see, is a nice petal design. It does not come off, so while it's threaded for 67mm filters, we're gonna pause that again. So while it is threaded for 67, screwing a filter on is a bit of a to-do because you can only do it between these scallops, really. So you're going to be sitting there screwing it on. It takes a little bit longer doing it that way, but you can do it. I just wish the hood was removable so that way you could put filters on a little bit easier. And for the love of Dog the Bounty Hunter and all that is holy, do not use a polarizing filter with this lens. First, if you somehow manage to screw it on, you're never going to get it off ever again because the front of the filter will just spin and you'll never be able to unscrew it. Not that using a polarizer on this lens going to be convenient anyway, because the lens is so wide that the polarization effect is not going to cover the entire coverage of the lens anyway. You're going to get like this band of darker sky and then lighter corners. So it's neither here nor there. It might be kind of a moot point. I thought about using the Kenko magnetic system, but since I'm going to be using this primarily for film photography, more likely monochrome, I would want to use colored filters. That would mean I would need the magnetic ring, the conversion ring to screw onto the filter, and then the filter itself, which then did leave vignette marks, and you'll see them here. Under the lens was a fairly well packaged optical viewfinder, and as I hinted before, this is my first big gripe about this lens. It's made from plastic for starters, and yes, I know Voigtlander makes plastic viewfinders, but this is like the plastic you get at like a dollar store when you buy a toy gun, water gun or something like that. It's just, this is beyond cheap. This is next level cheap. I looked into getting the Zeiss ZM18 viewfinder, but the cost of that viewfinder alone is half of the cost of this lens. Scroll. There we go. Second gripe about this finder is how close you have to use it in order to see the whole image. I can actually feel my eyelashes touching. That's far too close for anyone with glasses. I'm lucky I do not wear glasses, but if you do, you're not going to be able to use this finder. Do yourself a favor, find a used finder for the ZM18 or a Voigtlander 15, and just know that your frame lines are either going to be too tight or too wide, and just adjust your framing accordingly. Once the lens is mounted, it is rangefinder coupled. However, on this camera, it blocks the little rangefinder patch. It would do the same on like a Voigtlander Bessa or other similar bodies. On my Leica M2 and the M5, it works just fine. But since this is an f8 and or f5.6 and B there, I'm not going to be using the rangefinder much anyway. On the lens, there's 3 red marks. The red 5.6, one on the lens body, and the last is on the focus ring at 2 meters, which is 6.5 feet for those of you that do not use metric. You line up all 3 of these, and theoretically you should get your hyperfocus distancing, which is everything from infinity to 0.9 meters or 2.9 feet in focus. If you're shooting landscape, I completely agree. But if you're going to be using this for street photography or events, I would change that to 1 meter or 3.2 feet, just because practicing a little bit. What I would expect to fill the frame with landscape or street photography, at the 2 meters, everything just seemed a titch soft. So I started playing with it at 1 meter, and everything worked out great that way. So yeah, set it to 1 meter if you're going to be doing street photography, and then 5.6, you should be good to go. I've not had a lot of time to get used to the character of this lens. As we know, each lens has their own character, and I can say this is pretty good at handling distortion so far from my test. Photographing walls is not exactly the best photography. It's kind of boring, but it at least lets you know what kind of character you're talking about with lenses. The color rendition seems fairly true, perhaps a bit more muted, more like my Voigtlander 40 1.4 SC, the single coating, as compared to the Zeiss ZM 35-28 that I have. The contrast is nice, but it's not over the top, but the colors are true, but not quite muted. Being so wide, there's not really much chance that you'll get out of focus blur unless you're photographing something really close. And then shooting wide open. The character of the out of focus blur when you are shooting like that is smooth enough, but yet you can still clearly define what's behind. So let's be honest, if you're looking for bokeh, you're not using an ultra wide lens anyway. That about wraps this up. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hit the like button, subscribe if you want to see more content like this. You can find me on most of the socials as JR Photography BC. Links are down below. Until next time, I have been John, and we will talk again soon. Have a great day. Today, I'm here to talk about, where did I put it? There it is. The brand new Lomography ATOLL ultra wide 17mm 2.8. And I have lost my place.